also I just wanted to introduce ourselves. So I've been talking a lot, and luckily a lot of folks in this room have met me before, so most of you are familiar with my face. For those of you who are not, I'm Sally Goldberg Powell. I'm the instructional technologist with the digital learning team at the Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching. I'm also the lead of the Tech for Teaching Studio, a space that we are excited to share with you once again through this sprint. And I will pass it on to Dahlia, who's a fairly new addition to our team, who will explain who they are and how they can help you as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dahlia. My pronouns are they or she, and I'm our new Teaching Spaces coordinator. So I coordinate the use of the new Tech for Teaching Studio, as well as the new Active Learning Classroom, which I would love to share also a link to maybe at the end. Oh, you're muted, Sally.
Great opportunity as well to use the new classroom, the Active Learning Classroom as well. Bookings for the fall are complete, but there will be bookings available in the winter, as well as bookings for events, I believe. So we can talk more about that at the end as well, time permitting. So again, our icebreaker today, and a lot of you have already participated, but if anybody else wants to chime in, the idea of what you wish students knew before attending their first class. So I'll give us a couple, like one more 10 to 15-second moment to think about that. And if you want to post something, feel free. Something you wish students knew before they came to the first class. We've had some folks mention that they're going to be there to help them, that this experience might not be like previous experiences they've had with the same subject matter. You know, that there might be some expectations there that you'd like to clarify. Anything else that people would like to share? That's okay to ask questions. That's excellent. Why to use office hours? Another great one, right? Yeah, if there's little spots or little spots of friction in your class where you feel like students didn't really understand or get the message the previous times you've done it, maybe being able to tell them right off the bat so it's in their minds. That's a great option as well. Great. So with keeping all of that in mind, thinking of that as being one reason why you might want to consider doing a welcome video, we'll have that in our minds as we start talking about why you might want to create a welcome video more broadly, and I'll pass it on to Dahlia for that.
So welcome videos are a great way to start your class because they allow students to get a sense of your personality and your presence as the instructor. And a video is usually or often a more effective way to communicate personality than text or writing. And so a welcome video can make a strong first impression to your students by allowing them to get a sense of who you are and put a face to a name and getting to see your personability. And it also helps them get oriented to the course and gives them a taste of your course, maybe an overview of the structure and expectations. And having a video in advance allows you to think carefully about what you want your students to know so that you're not forgetting any important information in class. And videos also tend to be shorter in that sense and more concise than when you're delivering that same information live in class. And it can help animate your course from the outset and set kind of the foundation for an animating course throughout. And if you provide a welcome video to your students in advance, then it establishes a welcoming space and a connection from the outset, and it also frees up time in your class for more community building or dialogue, opportunities for your students to share about themselves and their own expectations coming into the course. And so you can also use that class time to to connect with what you introduced in the video, interactively engage with some of the ideas or reflect on the ideas that you presented in the video during your class time. And it also increases the accessibility and usability of your content. And so you can include a script in your video that can easily be uploaded as a transcript, and that can allow different ways for students to access the content based on their learning styles and preferences. It gives them flexibility to revisit the material at their own time throughout the course, and allows those who missed a session to get caught up. And so you're also supporting UDL learning by diversifying how you're engaging and communicating ideas. And depending on your course, you could also this could also be serving as a model for different kinds of assessment options that you have available for your students to choose from, like such as creating a video. And then finally, recording a video also means that you can reuse and re-edit your video in future semesters. And so it can increase the lifespan of your welcome. And so you don't have to repeat yourself. So what would you want to include in a welcome video? And people kind of mentioned some things at the beginning, which are great. So one thing you want to do is to introduce yourself, your background, describe what you enjoy about the subject matter, maybe a little bit about your professional experience if you'd like. It's also good to include some personal tidbits about yourself to create a sense of who you are outside the classroom. And you could also think about what you might be asking students to share when they introduce themselves in the classroom, and then you're modeling this for your students. And so as people mentioned at the beginning, it's important to kind of convey to students that they belong in your class. The aim of their video is to be welcoming and also informative, right? So you want to welcome your students to the course, let them know that they belong, that you're excited to have them in class, and that you look forward to meeting and interacting with them throughout the term. And it's also helpful to have some basic information, such as where to find details, like classroom location, the format of your class, and also a little bit about TMU time, so that it starts 10 minutes after the hour, which is helpful for information for first-year students who might not be aware of these kinds of things yet. And then you also can have just an overview or a taste of the course expectations, such as what students will learn in the class, giving them a broad sense of the importance of the class or the relevance in the broader field, or what students are going to get out of the class. And you can share a little bit about the flow of the course, or get a sense of how the course is structured and the kind of participation that is expected of them in order to be successful. And you might also want to share your methods of communication, such as how you want them to contact you, when you're available for office hours or questions, and conveying the importance of regular communication by showing them how you can be of assistance to them as they work through the course. And you might also want to share how they can access accommodations, and those kinds of details are helpful to provide to students in multiple formats to make sure that they get that information. And it's also a space where you can give a kind of a tease to the first class, so you can get students excited and ready for class by giving them a sense of what the course is going to be like, what the first class is going to be like, guiding them in where to start, and maybe launching an activity that will be taken up in class, in your first class. And overall, it's just an opportunity to show them your passion and your enthusiasm for the topic, and to get them as excited and interested as you are. And so in terms of things to avoid, it's good to avoid any information that is going to date your video, such as specifically identifying things like the semester, the course location, or the year, and that's going to limit the ability for you to reuse your video in future classes. And you also want to avoid reviewing your course outline or your syllabus week by week and going into detail. Too much detail will also limit your video from being usable in the future if you make any changes to your course design. And you want to just kind of focus this video on giving your students a taster and keeping it short and sweet and welcoming. So you also want to avoid jamming too much into your video. Keep your video just a few minutes. You can always make more videos featuring different aspects of your course content or your design. Breaking up that content can help to increase engagement and allow students to more easily navigate between and also revisit specific aspects later on. And also some information might be better suited for another delivery format. For example, weighing an assignment, the weighting of an assignment might be easier to view in a table. And so in the next slide, we've left some links for further resources on welcome videos that you're welcome to explore on your own time.
Okay, and now we're going into a bit about the process of actually creating the video from a bit more from a technical standpoint and just a process-oriented standpoint. One of the things that I like to do is always start with the script. You might actually plan and use the script format to actually plan. So in the next slides, I'm going to share a guide with you that is all the links that I would want to share for this particular workshop, and it will have a link to its slide to a template for your script. And if you are booking a time with us to record your script in the studio or to record your welcome video in the studio, I highly recommend using this script and sharing it with us prior to your appointment, and that will make everything run a lot smoother for us. But the great thing about the scripting that we use is that it's a 2-column approach, which means on the right-hand side you'll place all of your text that you're going to be saying, but on the left-hand side of the script format, in the script template, you're able to place any visual information that you want to make sure is shown on screen at the same time. So it might just have that you're going to be on camera for the entire time, and that's all you need to write on the left-hand side. But in other cases, you might decide to use some slides. You might decide to use a background image that appears behind you if you're using a green screen or even recording on Zoom and using the background feature. So any visuals that you think you'd want to have as part of your video, you can include on the left-hand side, and it can help you plan. The other thing that our template will have is some suggested wording, but some suggested language and some suggested content that you might want to put in. You don't need to use that content, it's just suggestions, and it's just a way of helping you to think through or ideate what you'd like to put in your video, and feel free to break it apart and do it however you feel it would be best, as long as you keep it short and as evergreen as possible. So that's the scripting process. The other thing you want to do is practice that script out loud and edit it for readability. And one part of that part of the process that you might want to think about is sharing your script or sharing your practice with someone that you trust. It could be a colleague, it could be a family member, it could be a former student. Having them hear you read the script can help you ensure that it's easy to follow, it's not too dense, that it's clear. And so that can be a really, excuse me, it can be a really helpful process to share it with someone before you record and give you a sense of whether or not you're achieving what you want to achieve. You can prepare any other materials. So as I mentioned, you may want to use backgrounds or slides and that kind of thing. So you might want to prepare those ahead of time as well. Well, you will want to prepare those ahead of time as well if you're going to use them. And so getting all those materials together in one place and organizing them. A thing you may want to consider when you're looking at background images or other things you might use is to make sure you're modeling good attribution or being aware of copyright. So we do have a resource, and I'll ask my colleague David, because he's with us today and he's really good at finding stuff fast. If he can find our production, I believe it's free materials for production or something like that. We have a guide that has a bunch of different free resources out there that are not just free, but copyright free for the most part. And there's licensing information. He's on it. To get us that thing, but it also explains to you in that guide where to find the licensing information if you're concerned, so you can see what the licensing are for all the resources that we've provided. And it's just a good idea to model that for your students if you're expecting them to also have that academic integrity when they're using other people's materials. Then of course you're going to record the video. You have options. We are offering the option of recording with us, so you might record at home. You might polish the video a little with some simple editing, and we've got some links for that as well in the guide that we'll be providing in a moment. And the thing about those simple editing is things as simple as just trimming the beginning and end, just to make it feel more polished and cleaned up, right? Because you might need a moment to set yourself up after you've hit record, and it might take you a moment to find the stop button. And so just trimming the ends would be all I'd say that most people should need to do, especially with a video of this length. Don't overthink it. Don't anticipate doing a bunch of editing unless that's something you really enjoy and want to do, because it can make the process so much more time consuming. And I'm an editor by trade, and I still say try to avoid editing if you don't need to do it, just because it can get very elaborate very quickly. And then you'll prepare a transcript. So remember that providing an alternative form for a video, such as a text format, is basically your responsibility. Well, not basically, it's your responsibility as an instructor to always provide that for accessibility purposes. Ideally, you'll make closed captions, and again, we have a guide on how to do that, and it's not as complicated as it might sound, especially for a short video in which you already have a script. So it can be really easy to make a closed caption or generate a closed caption file. And we have some tips for how to do that without having to buy anything new. And it's fairly simple to do. And finally, you're going to share it, and we'll give you some tips for doing that as well. Just make sure I'm at the right spot. Sorry about that. So some basic recording tips if you're going to be recording on your own is to, find a balance between minimal audiovisual distractions and providing your students with a sense of who you are. You may notice that behind me, I set this up during COVID. It shows a little bit of my personality without hopefully being too distracting. It's not noisy in my space, but it does have a sense of, who I am in the background. My little stuffed cassette tape squishmallow thing is sitting behind me, and some of my embroidery is behind me, and some books. But putting yourself in an environment isn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. It gives students a sense of who you are. And that environment could be anywhere that you feel reflects who you are. It could be that you're in the lab at work. It could be that you are at home in a comfortable spot. It could be with a pet. It could be wherever. But make sure it's not too distracting. And if you are with a pet, for example, you may want to consider having the pet with you for a little bit and then having the pet disappear so you can have people focus on you instead of the cuteness of your furry friend. So just some things to think about, finding that balance. Strong light sources behind you can leave you in silhouette, so just avoid that. Some phones, if you're recording on your phone, are incredibly good, or even webcams are incredibly good at compensating for that, and you might find it's not as big of a deal depending on how bright that light source is, but it's something to keep an eye out for and be aware of. And you also just want to be prepared to do a few test recordings. You might want to try a few things out, and don't be afraid to try things and say that didn't work and do it again, and allow time for that. So just be aware that you may have to do a couple of test records to get to a nice setup that works for you if you're doing this on your own. So here's our guide, and I think one of my colleagues will share the link in a moment. Oh, thank you very much, David, for updating the link, so it should work for everybody now for the script. It is also, the script template link is also at the top of this guide. And so this guide just has a few more tips and tricks for doing this process, where you can find tutorials on trimming your videos, some suggestions for ways you can record. So for example, you can record using Zoom, just like we're doing right now. You could do the exact same thing to create your welcome video, as you may have already anticipated as being an option, as many of you taught this way throughout the pandemic. So you can imagine just setting up a Zoom meeting with yourself and just recording that, and not needing to use any other technology than technology you're already familiar with. That said, there's a few other options that provide you with some more customizability that might be fun to try. For example, in our studio, we use something called OBS, or Open Broadcast Open Broadcast Studio, which is software that is free to use. It was developed developed mostly for gamers and streamers who were trying to share their gaming with others to make those kind of videos, and is developed and has been fine-tuned for a long time, and it's been really picked up a lot in education circles because it's such a flexible tool. It basically gives you a lot of options for either picture-in-picture or having multiple sources connected to one software, so you can switch between different things. So if you want to show a whiteboard and you want to show yourself on camera and you want to show your slides and you want to have options for how you can go between those, OBS allows you to do that kind of thing and record right in the software, and it's free. We have tutorials for those that I've shared in our guide. Loom is another option that is recommended. I think it was recommended by the Chang School as well in some of their training, and it's a great tool as well. It gives you that picture-in-picture really simply, so either a circle or a square of yourself in a corner, and then your slides nice and large. And the nice thing is you can move that circle around and have it positioned in a place that works best for your slides, and resize it and so on, so you can make it exactly, customize it a little bit and record with them. The nice thing with Loom as well is they have free educational licensing. So if you are connected to any institution of learning, you can get a free account. For trimming video, we have also provided those tutorials, as I mentioned, and also information on how to provide a transcript and closed captioning for accessibility. Again, a really important step. that once you've done it once or twice won't be too overwhelming. And even if it's just the transcript, which is just basically your script if you pre-scripted it, that alone can be a huge help if you don't feel like the captioning is something that you can tackle just yet. So I've provided a example. I might play a little bit of it in a moment. Let's see how we're doing for time. Yeah, we're doing okay for time. So this is a video that I made from my class the first fall that we were teaching online for the pandemic, so fall 2020. And as you can see, it says right in my in the screenshot here, for fall 2020, this course is being taught. And what I will say in my defense is that teaching during the pandemic was a very unique experience and required a unique welcome video. But if I were to re-record this video and do a new welcome video for my class that's following the same sort of format, I would take out those labels or things that identify exactly what semester the video was originally recorded for, so I could use it for more than 1 year and could hopefully get some longevity out of the video. But what I did do that I do like about the video is because I have some editing skills, I was able to put together a few little videos into one. And one thing I did was I went out on the streets of my town, which is Bowmanville, and shot a little bit in where I live and just sort of gave a sense of where I was and who I am and that kind of connection, especially because we weren't meeting in person. So I really think that worked really nicely. There isn't too much information. It is 3 times too long than I would make now. It's 6 minutes long. But it does have some examples for you, and you're free to look at it and cringe along with me, because yeah, no matter what you do, no matter how many times you've recorded video of yourself, it's always awkward to watch it later. It's just part of it. I like to think of it as a way to be humble and show some humility with your students to be willing to do this kind of video as well. So let's just see if I can click on the link and have it open up for us. I don't know if we're going to be able to hear it very well. And with that, I think it's time to leave this space for once. You're going to see me sitting here all the time. So right now we have the opportunity to, maybe move around and get outside, which I don't do enough. So let's do it. Come on. So like I said, I'll be coming to you from the municipality of Clarington, more specifically, the town of Bowmanville. It's a bit of a sleepy town, but we do have a skate park. No commuting to the city for me, no school for her. At least I can take some time and take road trips. With this one, we listen to the radio.
I write the songs.
This one's kind of a bummer. I give it a 4.
5.
A classic.
Yeah.
I give it a 6.
I'll give it a 7.
But yeah, sometimes I miss the city. So there you go. Brought a little cutie pie with me to end off this video. This is Cosmo. Marty is somewhere around here sleeping. He was named after Marty McFly from Back to the Future, of course. In any case, that's enough about me. We're going to get on to the class now. But before I do, I want to let you know that there'll be opportunities for you to tell me a little bit about you, as well as telling the rest of your classmates a little bit about you as well. Since we can't meet in person, this is the best we can do. And so hopefully we'll get to know each other a little bit more, which should hopefully help us with getting through the course. Thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to getting to know you better through the next few months. So there you go, just to give you a sense of how that can be done. And the idea of just being friendly, open, and showing a little bit about who you are so that when they're walking into your class for the first time, they don't feel uncomfortable. So a little bit about studio recording. I'm going to hand it back over to Dahlia now, who's going to tell you a bit more about the Tech for Teaching Studio, and then we'll go into some more of the details about recording with us.
Thank you, Sally. That was really great. So we have the benefit now that we're back in on campus. We have the benefit of the Tech for Teaching Studio, which is a small but flexible space that's uniquely designed for creating short duration multimedia content that you can record easily and use in your teaching. And so you can create small videos or audio files to share with your students that allow for new formats and content delivery, and can provide new and interesting ways for them to engage with the content. And the space is located in our office on the 7th floor of the Daphne Cockwell building. And so our studio has a range of professional equipment that is available that you could for you to make your video or your audio. And we have a number of setups that we can arrange in advance for you to bring your vision to life. So we have a light board, a glass kind of whiteboard that you can write or draw on. It looks like you're writing in the air, like you see on the top right photo there. We have a green screen or a black or white backdrop for videos, so you can have any background you want or have slides or graphics or images pop up with you or behind you on the screen. We have a document camera, so you can record objects on a table or something that you're showing with your hands. And we also have professional grade microphones with adjustable stands, as well as soundproofing to increase the audio quality. And we also have equipment such as a laptop that includes the OBS software that Sally was mentioning before, and a Stream Deck. We have a teleprompter, so you can load your script and read off it when you're recording your video. And we also have a 360 video camera kit. And so how the studio works is we have a booking form that we have linked in the slides that we can also include in the chat that you can fill out, and we'll also have this available on our website soon. And so before all bookings, we like to set up a virtual consultation with you first to go over your project, confirm the scope of the project and the kind of setups that you're going to need and the kind of support that you'll need, answer any questions that you will have, and you also have an opportunity to consult with one of our great instructional designers about your course design and how you could enhance your instructional materials. And during the booking, our staff will be there to support you throughout, including our very tech-savvy team of students, of Career Boost students. But we will also want to support you in trying things out on your own once you've received the necessary orientation and training. And we also have a growing collection of guides and tutorials on how to use the equipment and the different setups that we have. And we do offer some editing support depending on our availability after production. And so as part of this workshop, we are inviting you to take part in a welcome video sprint, if you'd like, where you can book some time to come into the studio and record your welcome video for your class. And so that's taking place on this Thursday, August 17th, August 22nd, and 24th from 10:30 to 2:30. And so we have a link here for to reserve a spot. And this is an opportunity for you to put into practice the knowledge that you've gained and the things that you've gained from this workshop and try out the studio and recording a video.
Yeah, and those spots are quickly filling up. So, we'll see if we can squeeze in a couple more if we can't fit them all in during the time, depending on interest. But hopefully you've also gotten a lot of great tips for doing these recordings on your own as well. So some of you might choose that route as well. But that doesn't mean we wouldn't encourage you to consider filling in our booking form as well, even if you're not interested in doing the sprint with us, but if you have another idea that you'd like to look at. Just one other note quickly is that we do prioritize some of the projects that are done through our through CELT in our bookings. So as projects come up, we do tend to prioritize people who might have a learning and teaching grant or we're working through the ETP program with us, just to ensure that those people who are already working with the center get opportunities to enhance what they're working on through us as well. Same with teaching fellows. So anyone who is working with our office already, we do have a question in there that just asks if you're one of those priority groups, and then we'll try and do our best to make sure your work gets through as well. So just some tips for when you're coming in to record in the studio. Some people find this really daunting. Some people get very excited. Everyone's different and everyone reacts differently, especially if they've never worked in this kind of space before. One thing to let you know and to anticipate is that it's a very small space. This isn't on my slide, but just be aware it's a pretty small space, and it's and as we mentioned before, it is able to be flexible and change into different setups. So that's why we're hoping that after you've booked your time, we'll get in touch with you and just find out exactly what you're looking for to make sure that we've set up ahead of time. And we're going to try and keep it simple for this sprint so we can get as many people through as possible. So it'll either be a green screen or probably a dark black background. And that way, and we can always change the color of the green screen to being a white background for you. So you're on white, but we use our green screen to make it happen. And that way we don't have to swap around different setups and we can get more people through the space. All of that said, the one thing you'll also want to do in preparation of coming in is to share your script and any other materials you'd like to use with us. So if you'd like to have a background that changes while you're presenting and you're using the green screen, we can do that and record it and give it to you right away. You can create a background for yourself that has your slides, or think about if you make slides and you do it in a way where you can stand on one side of the screen and you just make yourself like a Google slide deck or a PowerPoint or whatever, where your text is only on one side of the screen, then there's room for you and your text at the same time. And then we can just actually make that possible to be playing beside you while you're there. So that's something we can do. But just make sure you give us all those materials prior to your appointment. Be sure to practice before you arrive so you can be as ready to go as possible. So feel really confident and comfortable with your script. We do have a teleprompter, so we'll look into making sure that we have that up and running as well for when you come in, and that's why it's important to give us your script in advance so we could preload it, and that will make things go smoother as well. Bring water, something to drink, because when you talk that much, you end up wanting something to drink. So be sure to bring that with you. We also suggest wearing muted colors, especially when doing things on a green screen. It works better to not be wearing bright white or black. Another thing I didn't mention here is if you are able to wear your hair in a smoother way so that especially if you're someone with curly hair, sometimes the little details of that can be difficult on a green screen. So keep that in mind if you're comfortable doing so. We don't want folks to look completely different than who they are, and we'll do our best to work with whatever hairstyle you have. But just to be aware, there might be difficulty making the green screen work with certain types of hairstyles. And muted colors also, I should mention, if we're using the green screen, don't wear green, because what the green screen does is detects anything that's green in the shot, and will wipe it out. Another thing is if you wear a bright yellow, it sometimes will interpret that as the green as well. So I would suggest avoiding green or yellow. And be prepared to take a few takes. Like, we're expecting that we'll take you 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times to get it right, and don't feel guilty. Don't apologize for that. That's part of the idea. We're booking, I believe, are we booking 20 minutes with 10-minute blocks in between? Is that what we set up? Dahlia, I'm trying to remember what we actually set up, or maybe it's 30 minutes with 10 minutes in between. I can't remember.
I think I remember 45 minutes.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
Yay. Okay, 45 minutes with a 15-minute buffer. Whatever it is, we've booked you in for way more than 2 minutes, which is what your video is supposed to be. And that's because we know it's going to take a few times to get it right. And even if you get it right the first time, we'll let you do a few more so you have a few to choose from. So that's just our last note, is that a lot of people come in and apologize for not getting it right. And of course, like, nobody gets that. Very few people get it right on the first try. And when they do, it's a very exciting surprise. And that's part of the reason we start recording from the first time you present, because you never know. The first one could be golden and you don't want to lose that great performance. So sharing a welcome video, I'm going to throw it back to Dahlia for this to talk about ways to share it with your class.
So you can share your video with your students by email or in your DTL Brightspace. And you want to make sure that you include a transcript with your video so that you can allow them students to access it in different ways. And it's also helpful for your video to include closed captions so that you can so they can follow along if they need to or if they'd like. And you can do this by following the guide that we've linked here in the slides. And think about what other information that you might want to share alongside your video, such as specific links related to your course or learning resources. The idea is to alleviate anxiety by giving your students some guidance that help them to work through the information or any questions that they have without feeling overloaded. And so one idea is to share your welcome video with a colleague or a former student or family member so that you can get their reaction and their sense of your video.
And so just a few other ideas for continuing to think about integrating multimedia content. So beyond the welcome video, this is our final real slide, and just keeping you thinking about the idea of video beyond the welcome video. That it can really help students with asynchronous or self-paced learning. And that can be useful even in a fully in-person course. So there might be particular aspects of your course that require review, that some students find difficult to absorb, that would like, and that students might want an opportunity to review or revisit. This can be in the form of, say, like a demo video, or that shows them how to do a process. Or it could be about, you know, how to reach out and start doing your research at the library. Or it could be about common errors that are made in calculations, or core calculations that are required for the course. It could be all different kinds of information, but it's information that students might want to have access to on a regular basis, and where visually representing it through video might be the best way to tell the story. So you want to chunk these into small pieces that, as Adalia had mentioned earlier, that makes it really easy for students to find what they need and review only the pieces that they need and navigate through your course. It also makes it a lot easier for you. So if you have made a whole bunch of little videos, you might find from year to year that one or two of those smaller videos needs an update. Or maybe there's an error that you didn't notice that you need to fix. You don't need to go back and fix the entire thing and redo the entire video. You just have to redo the one where there's the error. So that's helpful. And so it's easier for updates. It's also easier when you produce them, because the longer a video is, the harder it is to either memorize the content or make sure you get it all right. So when you produce it, if you keep it short, you can focus on just that one video at a time and complete those. It can also be an iterative process, so that you find that you keep adding more videos as time goes on. So you can start by doing 2 or 3 little videos that you share with students, and if they go over well, you might decide to add a few more. The other thing that's really important about adding multimedia is to consider how it's complementing or linking to the other activities in the classroom. So it's really easy to provide these kinds of videos, and then they live sort of separate from the rest of the course, and a lot of students will either not engage with them, or it feels like this sort of added stuff that's not necessary, when really the point of adding video is to complement what you're teaching or to connect back to what you're teaching. So think about a case study video that you'll discuss in class, or think about a demo of something you need to do to complete an assignment. Things that are connected to other parts of the course, and find ways of integrating it back in, referring back to the videos, using them in class, even playing them if they're short, and then having them available on, say, D2L, so that students can go back and revisit them is really helpful. So we have a few examples on the right of other things you can consider. We can just record audio in our studio, or you can do it at home. We've actually set up our studio originally to be able to do our Podagogies podcast, and we've never gone back since the pandemic to going in studio to do that. It's meant we could have guests from all over the place. We found recording just through Zoom, our podcast, has worked quite well for us. So you might not feel like you need to come in to use the studio to do that kind of work, but we are there if you need us. And we've recently done a whole bunch of soundproofing in our space. The Lightboard, you can do demonstrations of complex equations. We had someone actually come in and do demonstrations of, you know, how to correct errors in sentence structure. And she did that for students who were having a lot of trouble with those things, that she found she was constantly telling them, fix your sentence structure. And this way she could say, when she got an assignment with those issues, go watch this video to learn more about how to do that, rather than having to explain it every time. And then we've already discussed the green screen in different ways you can use that as well. And that pretty much wraps it up, which I think is great, because it leaves us with 15 minutes for your questions or to go over anything. I will also just share with you for a moment that script template on screen so you can see it. Just give me a second here to do that. So here's our guide again with all the links. If you haven't clicked on it yet, you'll see it goes through all the different steps, like some quick tips, recording, trimming, and sharing. And then at the top is the script. This will open up as a template for you. So you just make a copy of the template and then you're good to go. And notice that there's a lot of green writing in here. That's just all instructional ideas of what you could put in to customize this script if you'd like to use it as is. Or you can start there and then start editing it and changing it as need be. The one thing that we do say at the top is to try and keep this to 3 pages or fewer, and that way it will be a good length for a welcome video, and will ensure if you are using the studio that you'll be able to record it.